Hello, this is Roy, your customer success manager of Simpson. Today, I'm going to tell you a bit more about the strategies and how to build them into Simpson. I will specifically go through all the blocks you see here on the left side, which we call the pricing strategies startup. And after that, we go to the business rule, where we have a bit more about the key profit and other things, and then about the notifications. So I go just through them one by one and I explain them how you can build a strategy in Simpson. So we always usually begin actually with one of the pink orange blocks where you can say we take that as a starting. So sometimes in some possibilities or situations you have an RRP price. You either want to monitor it or sometimes you have to adhere to it. So if I put in the RRP based price, you provide us in your product update into Simpson with the RRP price, and Simpson just take this as a base. So either we take this as the base for the calculation, or maybe as a retailer, you just have to follow the RRP price. It's in your ERP system, it's always there. So once that's been changed, it's automatically adjusted in Simpson. So as you can see, I can't really change anything about it. It just basically shows my recommended retailer price and I take that as a basis. Same thing goes for the supplier price base. So if the supplier provides you with a price, we take this as a base from the strategy. Then we go to the third one, which is the cost-based strategy. And again, you can see you can't really change anything about it. And the cost-based strategy looks at what's my cost of a product. And if my cost price increases or decreases, my selling price increases or decreases with the same amount. So what is important in here? This is a very good strategy. For example, if you look at the volatility in the market currently with the shipping container, so the shipping cost, overnight, sometimes we have seen those prices go up by 300-400%. Yeah, and if you then have to adjust them on all your prices, it takes too long and you're losing out on a lot of margin. This base strategy basically automates it. Then you have another one, which is the elasticity-based strategy. And the elasticity-based strategy is a bit more interesting. The principle of elasticity by itself is if I have a change in price, what's the impact on my volume, right? And looking into the strategy, you can see there is a black pencil here, which means I can click on it and I can start adjusting things in the block itself. And I can set up the parameters for the block. If the parameters are not being met, the elasticity block won't do anything, which basically means I can put in a count score and I can put in a correlation score. The count score basically looks at how many selling points, how many data points do I actually have, and the correlation score is measuring what's the correlation between volume and price. And this gives you the possibility to play around with it, to set it on a volume that is acceptable for you, which you feel comfortable with. So are you a bit more on the experimental side, you can go a bit lower. If you would like to play it more on the safe side, you go higher, with one being 100%. Keep in mind, the higher you go, the higher you set your parameters, the lower the amount of products that will be suited for the elasticity. Um, you also now have the options to select specific invoicing dates. So we're looking at a specific time frame we take in consideration. So I could say in this case, well, I only want to look at the 1st of April till the 10th of April. That's an option, or I can make it a rolling period where I could say, well, look back to the last year or the last half year. And in that, maybe even I can say, you know what, we're going to make it 2 years. And in those 2 years, I only want to look, because maybe there are seasonalities in here, I only want to look at the months February, March, and April. Right? So this is how you can build your own model where you can include and exclude the data that is necessary for your products. And at the same time, you could even add extra regions in there if that's needed. So you could make a model for NL, one for Germany, one for Belgium, one for the UK. At the same time, you could combine that. However, I would say rather don't, because from our own experience, we have seen that different countries have different purchasing behavior and there might be different elasticities. But then again, if you want to have an elasticity for the whole of Europe, for example, you can do that by that way. We can even make it very specifically for customers, or if you have different attributes Simpson is aware of, in this case, for example, gender and city, I can select for which specific gender, which specific city, or even an extra attribute. And then I can say the machine learning, I can set the outliers. So with regards to quantity on the lower side, on quantity on the upper side, which elasticity model I want to use. Do I want to optimize for margin over revenue? Am I modeling in a time frame per month or per week? And should I take inflation into consideration? That's basically all the possibilities you have on setting up the elasticity block. Going to the next step, we have the competitor-based block. In the competitor-based block, I can decide on a price position I have in the market. So do I want to be the cheapest? Do I want to be the most expensive? Do I want to be the second cheapest? So basically what Simpson is doing then, it's looking at, from all the competitor data we find, what's the lowest price point, what's the second lowest price point, and automatically will set the price right in the middle of those two. And I can do the third in the market, and I can be, follow the market. I can do what I want. So let's say I want to be the cheapest in the market, then I can decide for how many percent do I want to be cheaper than the cheapest in the market. Do I want to match it? Then I put it at 0%, or might want to be 4% cheaper. Or I could also say, I have this premium brand, and my brand value is that I know my clients are willing to pay 2% more than they are willing for my direct competitors. Then you put it on 2%. This could also be with your services, right? If you have same-day delivery, or there's always inventory, or you name it, you can. If you can put a value on it, you can just automatically recalculate the prices based upon that. We can also say in a competitive field, when should this block actually be used? So same thing as with the elasticity model, I can put in here a threshold. So if I want to say, if there were 1 or 2 competitors, this block is not going to do anything. The moment there are 3 competitors and more, that's when this block is going to be activated. And then I'm going to look at, okay, so I need to be the most expensive in the market. Second thing, we have an outlier removal in there. Basically what this does is looking at what's the average in the market from all the competitor prices we have found, right? And we are going to eliminate anything that's been seen as an outlier. So we're looking at what was your previous selling price, and what's the average in the market, and then we have a median, we have a mean, we have an average, and we have a standard deviation. And if anything is outside of that scope, it's being automatically being removed and taken out of it. What means is that we don't take it in consideration for the computation of the price. However, you still see the results on the product page. So you can still see what we found. We just don't take it in consideration. So it's more of a safety measure. However, if you say, no matter what's happening, I want to follow the market, then you put it on false. One of the reasons here is, for example, we have web shops, and sometimes they are 5 or 10 years old. They actually went bankrupt. They're not being actively managed anymore. And the prices have been updated for, let's say, 5 years or 4 years or 3 years. So you might want to, take them out. But that's up to you. You have the freedom to set it up. And we can also say, how long should Simpson look back? Right? And this is in months. So should I look back a week, 2 weeks, a month? You have the possibility in there. So keep in mind, so let's say we look 30 days back. And what it's now looking for in the current setup, it's looking back in the last 30 days. What's the most expensive? What's the highest priced product in my competitor matrix? And it's going to be priced against it, right? So it's looking 30 days back. If I, for example, do a daily scrape, I might want to set this on 1. Or if I do multiple scrapes a day, I just want to look at the latest known number. Even in those 30 days, what it will look like, it's will take into account the latest known price if it's the same vendor or same competitor. We have all the different platforms. We can add whatever you want in here. We have Google Shopping, we have Amazon, we have Coolblue, we have Bol, we have Alibaba, you name it, and we can add them, or we can build custom scrapers, and we can set in the frequencies here, daily, weekly, monthly. And in here you have the possibility of selecting the key competitors. So let's say you don't want to follow the whole market, but I just want to follow, these 3 competitors. Then I'm just selecting them, and then I'll make sure I only have those. That's about the competitor block. And then we have an algorithmic recommendation. So there is also the possibility in Simpson that if you maybe have your own elasticity or forecasting or demand, or basically your own scientific models already running, we can integrate them into Simpson and use that algorithmic recommendation from your own internal calculations, computations, models, and we integrate them into Simpson. So we create a win-win situation for those. So going through the pricing strategies startups. So basically what we're doing is we're building our own algorithm. Um, but keeping that in mind, we want to make sure that we can build our own business rules on top of that. So let me start with the key profit business rule. So basically, what does this rule do? I already told you about the cost-based strategy, which basically means if anything have a change in cost, my selling price increases or decreases with the same amount, which is interesting. If you look at if it's going up, it automatically goes up. But now your purchasing department did a great job, or your manufacturing team managed to get prices lower for the specific product, which means a decrease in your cost base of your product. Is that amount something you want to one-on-one uh, discontinue towards your selling price, right? So do you want to give that discount straight away to your clients, or do you want to make sure there is a certain percentage you keep yourself? So I can say the first 2% of my cost decrease is not going to be seen as a cost decrease, but I'm just going to maintain that percent. And the 2% I'm going to pocket myself as a company first. And if there is a 3 or 4 or 5%, so let's say there is a 5% decrease, the 2% I pocket myself, and the other 3% is being taken in consideration for the discount of the selling price. So that's what the key profit business rule does. Then we have the min margin adjust. Basically, I can set up any min margin I want to have for the products that are assigned to this strategy. So let's say I have it 35%, and I can have the possibility of fixing this min margin. So I can make sure it should always be 35%, not 36, not 37, not 38, but 35. That's when I put it on true. If I put it on false, it could be 42, 50, doesn't really matter as long as it at least is the 35. And in some B2B cases, you want to apply extra discounts on top of it. And then you can decide, should the 35% min margin actually be my min margin? Or is the discount allowed to go over that, the 35%? Then we have the price change cap adjust. And basically this means that I can say per iteration Simpson is doing on the price, I want to cap the price changes. So I can say, no matter what, this price shouldn't be changed for more than 5% at a time. Keep in mind, this is a very useful strategy, but it also has its limitations looking into, for example, if you go into a competitor strategy and you have a highly volatile market, this business rule would cap the price changes and kind of make your competitor strategy absolute. So that's how you can look at it. There is a second option in Simpson, which we call the anchor adjusted price. And then I could say over a period of time, and for this demo account, I set it at 30 days. I can say in those 30 days, I am perfectly fine with my product changing 50% over time. But on a daily base, it should not change by more than 2%. So it's looking at my current price today, and it's going to say in a period of 30 days, I am perfectly fine with my price changing 50%, as can be seen here, by a 2% change a day. So this gives you a bit of a possibility of slowly increasing or decreasing your price over time. Then we have the price within bounds. In a previous video, I showed you what you can all push with regards to product data to Simpson, and one of those is upper bound and is a lower bound. Or floor and ceiling prices, the way it's known. And you can say to Simpson, okay, do whatever you want, but stay within those bounds, right? And I could say my lower bound, I can say should be a percentage, so I can say it should be 1% or should be equal to the cost of a product. And the upper bound should also be equal to or a percentage of the markup. So I could say, well, I'm perfectly fine with my markup being a maximum of 50%, and my lower bound perfectly fine with being equal to my cost. So Simpson could, anything. Or I can say my minimum markup on my products is 25%, and it should never be more than 50%. And that's how you then can set it up. Then we have price roundings. In Simpson, you have the possibility of automatically rounding all your prices. So we can do that either on a decimal or an integer. Decimal being, of course, the numbers behind the comma, the integer being everything before the comma. And I can do my price rounding before VAT or after VAT. And I can select where do I want to round. Do I want to round on 99 cents based upon 0.5, or everything from 0.1 should be rounded to 99 cents? Or if we go to integer, I want to have everything rounded to 9. So this is how you can set it up. We also have the possibility of going into a stock-based pricing situation. So the stock-based pricing situation gives you the following option. If my stock hits a certain threshold, I want to increase or decrease my price by an X amount. So if I want to decrease, I can just put a minus in there, and otherwise I just keep it like it is. There are two options of using this block. You can either push the run rate to us, so basically looking at how many weeks of inventory do I still have left. And based upon that number, I want to take some action, right? So if I'm going to say every single time I have 3 weeks of inventory left and I know I need to purchase and deliver stuff from China, for example, and that takes actually 6 weeks. So the last 5 weeks, I slowly want to start increasing my prices, let's say by 4% to slow down the demand a bit. And then I actually do the second in there. And then I say, well, if I have another 2 weeks of inventory just left, do another 5% on top of it. This way I can manage my inventory and yield upon the inventory as much as I can. We have the apply promotion. This gives me the option of giving just a fixed discount on a product. So maybe end of life stage of product lifecycle management where this can be used for. And then we have the apply campaign. Apply campaign basically gives you the possibility of saying there's basically a calendar and you could provide us with this specific products should have from the 1st of May until the 5th of May a selling price of 200. And if you then have the apply campaign block, during, let's say, the end of April, it will run its regular strategy. It will follow the competitors, or depending on how you set it up, and it will do what it needs to be done. And then from the 1st of May, it automatically goes to 200 euros. And at midnight, the 5th of May, it will go back to the normal competitor strategy. So this gives you the possibility of having fixed prices for a specific period of time, and you can set the hours and the days you want to have this specific price active. And then we also have the option of putting in notifications. So you have compared to supplier, for example. So if my selling price has a more than 15% or 5% price difference than I have for my supplier price, I want to get a notification. Or if my list price is actually below the min margin, then I want to get a notification. So this, for example, this notification can really be used in combination with a competitor strategy, where you then can say, okay, so I want to be the cheapest in the market, for example. Let me get that one here. So I say I want to be the cheapest in the market by 5%. However, I have this min margin in here of 44%. So basically what would happen now, I will look at the lowest price point, right, and I'll go below that. But now Simpson's going to check, hey, do I still have that minimum margin of 44%? No, I haven't. So the market wants to push it below. The min margin business will adjust it again, so it sets the price to the minimum margin of 44%. And that's when I get the notification. So basically, I come in the morning, I can check and be like, okay, so for the 95% or 97% of the products, it all went fine. But for these 3% of the products, they need my attention because the market is going actually below the min margin I am comfortable with, which I have set, but maybe I want to follow them. There could be strategic choices for that, right? Or maybe you want to have a call with your supplier to make sure, like, hey, they are offering up way, way, way below the price we're purchasing it for. So maybe you get some room to renegotiate prices. We can also do a large cost increase and large margin increase. I can say if my cost of my product increases by more than 15% or 3%, I want to get a notification. Same thing goes with margin. So basically, this usually means there is a shift in the environment, and you might want to act upon this. Thank you for listening. I hope this helps you a lot. Stay tuned for more videos.